Hey, welcome to the College Investor Audio Show. We are honored, truly grateful that you're here hanging out with us, as today we want to play you the interview that Robert had with our good friend Chuck Jaffe. He was on the podcast Money Life with Chuck Jaffe, talking about college savings plans and all the different changes going on, just so that you're in the know of what's happening. You can always check us out on social media at The College Investor. All right, let's get to the show. Money Life with Chuck Jaffe.
With Robert Farrington. He is the founder and the chief proprietor at thecollegeinvestor.com. If his name rings a bell, it's because he's been on the show a number of times. And I know that at FinCon, I bring you a mix of a couple of people we've talked with and a couple of people who are brand new. But there's so much going on if you are looking at college debt that I really needed to say the following words. Robert Farrington, it's great to have you back on Money Life.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. It is a whirlwind going on right now.
It is. So I was just down visiting my youngest daughter, who on August 24th delivered my first grandchild.
Congrats.
So I have college savings in my head and in my brain in multiple ways. I have it because I had a conversation with my daughter who's talking about, she should be paying on her college debt, what little she has of it. And yet, payments don't qualify right now, etc. I also know that my wife, Gail, her daughter, Mackenzie, is looking to go into loan forgiveness. And who knows if it's like, congratulations, you qualify, but you can't really get there from here. So where are we right now in terms of those folks who have college debt and are hoping maybe they'll somehow get rid of some of it by doing things that always worked? Are they still working?
Yes, they are still working, but you opened a can of worms on all the different problems that there are in the system today. So there are over 80 ways to get student loan forgiveness in this country. Some of them are federal, some of them are state-based, some of them are employer-based. There are a lot of options. But the problem is, it comes down to what types of loans do you have? What student loan repayment plan are you currently on? What student loan repayment plan are you going to choose to go to as things shift? And are you going to be able to finish that? Because about statistically, 50% of student loan borrowers will get some type of loan forgiveness, full or partial. But 50% will end up paying them off, either because they always were going to pay them off, or they started earning too much money and it just started making sense to pay them off versus writing it out. And which path you choose really depends on your situation with all these different variables at play.
How much is it harder to decide right now? Because things like my daughter, her plan says you got to make X number of payments, and the payments right now don't count towards forgiveness.
So I'm guessing that she's going for public service loan forgiveness, which is one of the most popular loan forgiveness programs out there. And it requires a few things. One of them is making 120 qualifying payments, 10 years, right? But it requires you being on the right student loan repayment plan. And about 7 million Americans are jammed up in the SAVE student loan repayment plan. And the SAVE student loan repayment plan is the one that is stuck by the courts and is changing. The cool thing is we have clarity on repayment plans in America today. We know exactly what is supposed to happen. Right now, we are recording this in the fall of 2025. If you are currently a student loan borrower, you have access to the income-based repayment plan, IBR, pay as you earn, pay, and ICR, income contingent repayment. Those all count for PSLF, and you can switch today by going to studentaid.gov, filling out an application. You may not want to, though, because starting in July of next year, July of 2026, the new Repayment Assistance Plan, RAP, becomes available. And for borrowers that are making about less than $100,000 a year, it could have a lower payment than the existing plans right now. So, clarity on the plan options. You can go online, you can run the calculators, and you can decide. And you can take action today if you want to. Now, if your personal financial situation doesn't let you, because it's hard to make those bills, you can wait. But realize that the time is ticking and you're going to have to make a choice, whether it's today and choosing one of the ones that's available or next year and choosing RAP. They're not going to let you keep waiting forever, and you're going to have to make that choice.
And how much are those programs available to the full spectrum of borrowers if they did their loans publicly or they did their loans privately?
So these are all for federal student loans. None of these rules apply to private loans, and those have never been paused. They just continue to exist just like everything else. So realize, though, that there's only about $100 billion in private loans. Still a lot of money. Let's not kid ourselves. But there's $1.7 trillion in federal student loans. And so the amount of private loans have always been smaller.
What if somebody has a private loan, what can they do?
The real only option is working with your lender if you can't afford the payments, or refinancing. Refinancing is all based on rates, so it's choosing your student loan interest rate. If you can get a better rate than your current loan, refinance. If you can't, then you got to stick it out with your existing loan. The cool thing with education loans is there's never a prepayment penalty and there's never an origination fee. There is no cost to switch. So if you can beat your rate, go shop for it.
There had been lots of talk about loan forgiveness. There was some loans that were forgiven. That was one presidential administration ago, and there doesn't seem to be a lot of sentiment to bring that back right now, at least from what we're hearing out of Washington. So what's next for folks who are hoping that we might be a kinder, gentler place for folks who have paid for education?
Well, I think it's important to realize that they didn't actually eliminate any of the existing student loan repayment plans either. So the One Big Beautiful Bill passed, and there were no changes to student loan forgiveness. The programs that exist today still exist. However, they did change some of the repayment plan options, but the new repayment plan options, the RAP plan that we just spoke about, qualifies for public service loan forgiveness. So while there is fear that things could change, the law hasn't changed. And so I don't see a future where it doesn't exist, at least in the short term. But that's not to say that they don't pass legislation in the future that could change things. It's important for student loan borrowers, though, to remember that any changes to student loan forgiveness rules will only apply to new loans. It's not based on the date the law goes into effect. It's based on the date you took out your student loan. And so it could impact future borrowers, it could impact your children, but it won't impact you today.
The moral of this story is that anybody who is in the boat, not of my daughter, but of my stepdaughter, who is looking at what should I do, really should be running the math and deciding, can I afford to make the payments until next summer? And will I be better off if I wait? Or should I do this right now? That's that moral of that story, correct?
That is the moral of the story. A lot of people might benefit from starting right now, starting to get those qualifying payments again. But if your budget doesn't allow it, look at next year's repayment assistance program and see if that's better for you. Either way, repayment is resuming for the 7 to 8 million Americans on that SAVE plan. Now is the time to be running the math and deciding which path is best.
Now let's go the other way and talk about what should people be doing when it comes to college savings, because I just had this grandchild, and although I'm working to secure his financial future in other ways, he has other grandparents that'll do what they have to for his education, and he's got his parents who are already setting up planning to set up as soon as they can. But we're at a spot where we're watching a lot of things happen, and you've got a lot of disdain for the educational system coming from Washington right now. And there's a lot of question about, how long we'll continue some of these plans, et cetera. Does it change in your mind the way anybody should do things? Like, okay, I was able to save with a 529 for both of my children. It was recommended back then. It was the same thing. Am I, or my other fellow grandparents, supposed to be doing something different now because of the world or the time we're in?
I don't think so. The 529 plan is the best plan to save for education specifically, and I do want to put that on there. If you're a parent, I have a framework for parents. The framework is yes, you need to save for yourself first, then you save for education, and then you have general savings for your kid. But put that oxygen mask on yourself first. Make sure you're prepared for your own life, your own finances. Then you can look at education. But for grandparents, I love a 529 plan. I love a 529 plan for a myriad of reasons. Estate planning, it's a great way for estate planning and grandparents. It is also great because it doesn't impact your kids' financial aid, doesn't show up on the FAFSA. And then finally, 529 plans continue to expand their uses. So maybe you don't think a 4-year college is in the path. That's okay. It can be used for apprenticeship, vocational school, student loan repayment, K-12 education. You're sending the kid to private school? Do it. There's so many options for a 529 plan that's beyond just college these days. And I see that path continuing with some of the frustrations about higher education in America. but they're not going to let these plans go. They're just going to keep opening them up for other uses.
So last question in all of this, because my audience has heard me talk about the things that I am doing for my grandson, financially speaking. Although the Roth IRA I am setting up for him, we've already played our first sounders that he recorded for me, so he's a voiceover artist already. The Roth IRA that we will open for him, that's not going to work against him on FAFSA. But the stock portfolio that I intend to open for him, that will. Now, I always said that for my kids who had a stock portfolio, it didn't make a noticeable difference. So let's just ask you that question. Am I somehow, although we know that financially I'm putting him ahead of the game, is there anything that puts my son-in-law and daughter or my grandson in peril if I am doing a modest, your gifts go into stocks every year?
Yeah, so the UTMA account that is in their name and you're a custodian for does impact them as the child's asset on the FAFSA. It's the biggest hit. It counts as their money. And so let's hope it just grows to a phenomenal amount, and who cares? That is really the goal. But it can impact them if they're on that borderline. I feel that the big problem with financial aid in America is the messy middle. Wealthy people, it's not a problem. If you're low income, again, it's not a problem. But you get into this range where you start phasing out and schools have policies, and that's where those little bits of dollars can be impactful. Again, though, if it's playing into estate planning and playing into other things, maybe it's not even going to be a worry. And let's just hope that over 18 years, it grows into a phenomenal amount.
Yeah, that's the basic plan. The basic plan is to make him a tycoon before he goes to college, at which point he's not worrying about it. But if we cannot achieve that, I will point out for those who want to know, the numbers are 6% of the parents' assets are considered available to spend for it, but 35% of the child's assets. So yes, that is the disadvantage. If I set aside, let's say $10,000, $500 a year and a little bit then some beyond that for 18 years. If I've set aside 10 and it grows to 30, well then 10,000 of that theoretically is going to be considered usable, and it changes the aid for me.
Exactly. And every school does have their own policies as well, especially in the Northeast where a lot of schools use the CSS profile, not the FAFSA. They get to pick and choose their own way that they decide. And that's important to note because there's a few hundred schools, especially the private elite schools, that might look at that and say, well, we're going to count all of that because that's how we roll.
Robert, great stuff always is when we connect. Thanks so much for taking time out at FinCon.
Thanks so much for having me. This has been great.
Robert Farrington is the founder and the guy behind thecollegeinvestor.com. Check out the website so that you can get all your questions answered. You can get a lot of guidance and other things that will help you on your college journey or your college savings journey.
And that is the show for today. And as Chuck mentioned, thecollegeinvestor.com is kind of the hub that you can go to. You can also, if you have any questions, comments, anything at all, please let us know. Just drop us a line on any social media platform, pretty much where you are, we're there too, at The College Investor, and you'll find us. Thanks again for stopping by today, and we'll talk to you again real soon.